Okay, students, welcome back. We are continuing with our skirt module. We're going to be wrapping up here on chapter 13. We're on page 262, and we're talking about a pegged skirt. So this is going to be more tapered pencil skirt with pleats at the waistband. So we're going to be, we've been creating fullness at the bottom of the hem. Now we're going to be creating fullness closer to the waistband and folding that back into the waist. So in this particular case, we will be using the slash and spread method. This is ultimately what it's going to look like when you're all said and done. And then we'll be folding that back into the waist. I'm going to demonstrate for you. We'll be starting off, tracing off first onto our craft paper and then tracing it, securing it to our point paper. So the first thing we want to do is, of course, trace off your sloper. So I'm going to just align this to my paper. We're going to just trace it all off for now, using the length of the sloper as our guide, and then we'll modify from there. So I'm taking off my waistband and my dart legs, my side seam, making sure to mark my hip level, continuing down my side seam and marking my bottom seam allowance. Then I'm going to use my graph ruler to make sure I'm transferring that hip level perpendicular to the center front. Always good idea to mark your grain line. Make sure you're marking the dart apex with your awl. And now I'm going to transfer those dart legs. So a peg skirt is slightly tapered at the bottom hem. Generally speaking, you would want it to have a back slit to help with walking, or a side slit. The rule for a tapered bottom hem is you can would say a maximum that you want to take off total from your skirt, depending on how long or short is about 2 inches. And when I say 2 inches, you want to consider the skirt in a round. You're thinking about the bottom hem. So that means a 1/2 inch on the front, 1/2 inch on the back, front side panel, 1/2 inch on this front side panel, a 1/2 inch on the back panel, and another 1/2 inch on the back panel, which made a total of 2 inches all the way around. And just like we had talked about before, we want to be able to stabilize our skirt. So we want to blend that back in. So I'm going to mark up about 4 inches, and where we're gonna start to shave off. So it's gonna shave off. We're pegging it in. You're gonna need to add a back slit in order to accommodate this so she can walk. Now let's deal with the additional pleats that we want, the fullness from our original design. So we're going to create some slash marks here where we want this fullness to cascade back. They're going to come from our dart legs, and they're going to radiate towards the center front. So we're going to create 3 slash lines, and we want to make sure they're above this stability mark that we've had. So you never want to slash into your peg area. So I'm going to mark up from here about 5 inches. And this is where I'm going to extend my slash lines to. So this mark along here will be my first slash line. It's going to connect to this first dart leg. So I'm going to, noting the dart center of these darts, I'm going to connect this first dart line to the apex of this dart And these are simply design lines right now. And then I want the next slash line to be parallel. So I'm going to draft a parallel line, which is about 1.5 inches up, which would connect to that second dart leg. And now I'm going to create a third slash line that's going to go into the waistband area. I'm going to pivot this one a little bit so we don't want too much stress in the waist. I want it to be it's going to be about 1/2 inch off of that first dart leg and about 1 inch down. And these will become slash lines that we're going to spread out. So now we're going to cut this out and then stick it on our point paper. Okay, so as you can see, we've cut out our sloper. We've taken out the dart intake. And next I'm going to trim off the peg, which is the 1/2 inch from the bottom of the hem. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slash. So we want to open up and add fullness here at the waist. So we're going to be slashing from the waistband to the side seam. Remember to back off of 1/4 inch so it can hinge open. Then we're going to secure this center front to the grain line, and then we'll hinge this open. So I'm going to trim on my slash lines. These are, again, just design lines. You won't necessarily see them in the final pattern. They're simply to help us get the added fullness that we want as part of our design. So I'm going to secure this down to the center front along my grain line. And I want to make sure that my hem is nice and secure. And now we're going to gently pivot out however much fullness you want to add. This fullness will become your darts or your tucks or your pleats. So in this case, we're going to make these into pleats. And you'll notice that we're going to need to reblend our side seam here as it becomes unstable from the pivoting. And then you'll secure your pattern pieces. So what we have right now could all be gathered fullness, but I'm going to talk about how we would convert this back into darts or pleats in this case. So the difference that we have right here now is where we want the new darts to be, the new pleats to be. So we need to mark how much, we need to find the center of each of these. And that's what's going to, and then we will notch where we're gathering these. So basically what we're doing is we need to find the center of each of these new darts that we've created and then create notches for how much we want them to close. So I'm going to take my graph ruler to find the center of each of these. You can also, if you're very tape happy, you can literally tape it down and find where the center of each of them are going to be. These become your new tuck legs. And we are going to need to close this to blend the waistband back together so that we can true our waistband and true our seam allowance and create a solid waistband facing that you would then fit everything back into. So remember, you always want the fullness to go towards the side seam. So where your original darts were, we're going to fold on what was the apex. Fold on your new tuck. And close that so you can make sure that your waistband is trued. Secure it. Same thing with the next one. Fold on that apex. You want to pinch it closed. Fold on that dart leg. And then we'll pinch it closed. And then the last one, same. So that once you have all your tucks closed, that's when you can come back with your tracing wheel and secure it to know where the direction of your seam allowance is going. And I'm going to use my marker here so you can see where the blended waistband is. Then I'm going to undo my taping. And now, from where the tracing was, so this the full fabric is here and here. So that tracing wheel is my guide to know how much of the fabric I need to include into that new waistband for the tuck. And then be sure to, if this is a pleat, you're going to include those notches. If this was a tuck, you'd want to figure out how far down you're sewing. You include your punch holes. If this is a dart, you'd have the punch hole 1/2 inch off of the center of the dart apex. You would want to blend your out seam here at your side seam. So using that French curve, we're going to make sure that this is straightened out. So it's a nice, gentle shape, not overly exaggerated. And remember, this is slightly tapered. You included this, you shaved off a 1/2 inch here at the side seam. You'd include the same thing on the back panel when you go to do the back panel. And that is how we do 906, the peg skirt.